Masters, masters, masters of change.
Hello there. Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Kunio, and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University, and I'm here with my good friend Charlie Hogg. And Charlie and I are discussing the big and the small things of life together, and we hope making spiritual perspectives easier. Welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Kim. Great to be here.
Charlie, we've been having a number of discussions already on really one of the biggest topics, and to me it's like a topic that it's a bit like discussing politics when you have a dinner party. It's a little bit hard to discuss karma. Why is that?
Because I think that ultimately karma is about self-responsibility, and you have to take, fundamentally it says, whoever you are, you've created that. You know, what is your life of relationships, your life of happiness, your working life, and even your material wealth is all really dependent on your attitudes and actions that you perform. And sometimes that's not so comfortable to accept certain realities in life. So sometimes it's a little bit controversial, or people reject it. Even once I was in South Africa and I was meeting a woman who was in Nelson Mandela's cabinet. And she was very interested in spirituality, but she said, I used the word the law of karma. She said, I don't like the law of karma. And I said, why? And she said, well, it sort of infers that if people are born in third world countries, they're not as good as people in first world countries. And I said, that's not really true, because there's so many layers of karma. There's emotional karma, and some may be born into the most loving family in a third world country, or some could be born into a wealthy family in a first world country. No love in the home, an empty home. So which would you prefer? So there's layers of karma, you know, it's a very sort of intricate, and you can't really sort of teach the law of karma, you can only teach the deep sort of tools to give you a perspective on a situation.
Charlie, I wanted to give you a little personal reflection. As a musician, one of the big things that happens is you get reviewed by the newspaper. So you do a performance. And I can remember as a young musician, first of all, the first few reviews you get are very exciting. And I got a couple of really good reviews, and I thought, oh, look at me. Oh, you know, aren't I doing well? And then I got a bad review and I was gutted. And I talked to one of my music teachers and he said, oh no, there's a simple solution. You believe the good reviews and you don't believe the bad reviews. And are we all a little bit like that?
I think we are, Kim. I think denial has been sort of inbuilt into our psyche for a long time, because, you know, when we can't change and our weaknesses just become constantly apparent, we don't want to accept them. So we've learned this incredible self-deceit. We just deny to myself who I really am. And in a way, the law of karma is like that too. I don't want to accept, because there's so much good about me. I can accept that, but sometimes the things that aren't working, I can't accept that I've got a part in it. It's actually my past that has also contributed to the problem or the issues in my life.
It seems to me, Charlie, this comes down to a word with 3 letters in it that we forget about so often. It's the ego, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Kim. The ego means that I'm blind to who I really am. You know, it just like puts on these spectacles of blindness where I can't objectively see myself. Now, the ego blindness will see everything wrong in myself, and then it will deny a lot of that stuff too. You know, because it's just too painful, because I don't really know how to change. So ego, I would say, if you try to describe the essence of the spiritual journey, it's really, as you go into soul consciousness, it's moving more into an egoless state. And the more you're egoless, it has an incredible influence on how you feel. You don't have all the ups and downs. And a massive influence on relationships. I would say the big issue that destroys relationships is ego.
Charlie, for today, I wanted to actually talk about something that ego does play also a huge role in. It's the money thing. And I wanted to basically say, what's the relationship between karma and money? And how come so many of us just are not comfortable about money, or we want so much of it?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, really, because when you think, who am I? I'm a non-physical eternal being, but I live in a material world, but I can ultimately never own anything, which is pretty interesting. When I die, do I carry things forward? There's a story about Alexander the Great, that when he died, he had conquered the known world. At that time, he travelled right through to India and so on. They say he asked for his hands to be outside his coffin to show he died empty-handed like any other person. And that's really then, you begin to think, rather than accumulation as the aim of life, to use whatever I have for the benefit of me, my family, and the world. And what I've always been interested in, remember in the old system of the church, and I think many religions are the same, the tithe, that you gave a certain percentage of your income for the church or the benefit of the community. And you'll always be looked after. It's almost, this is real investment, Kim, because it's karmic investment. If you give to those, you'll be looked after at your time of need. Life is like that, eventually. And even in our world, we have all these mega billionaires, and there's two types of them. Some of them create wealth and use it for the betterment of society, and usually they continue. But some who just use it for me, somehow they can easily go bankrupt and lose it, because they are a soul that's acquired resources, and rather than using them to make a better world, they use them for the self. Then in time that karma will run out and they'll have nothing.
Charlie, in one of our earlier conversations, we talked about karma, it's like a universal law, and we said, well, actually, we believe it so deeply as a society that we make our own versions of karma. So when someone breaks the law, we have laws in every country to stop people stealing or hurting others, or extreme acts of violence or sexual violence. These are illegal in our societies. And it seems with money, we've also come to terms with this because we have taxation. So we actually, in nearly every society, we say we have a version of the tithe. And sometimes taxation's a dirty word, isn't it? But really, if we live in our country, Australia or India or America or any country, some of your earnings are given off to care for others.
Yes, that's exactly right. And people even try to evade that, don't they? Because they want all that wealth for themselves, rather than realizing that when I am honest and I do that bit, it will keep really the quality of my life okay. Because, the law of karma can never lie. The only thing is that sometimes the fruit may come much later. You may go through periods where you don't have much or whatever, but ultimately, they often say that if you are like a benefactor in your life, if you, build hospitals and do things like that, you'll be born in a place where you'll have good health and so on. So, the way you use your material resources is a huge factor in the quality of your life. If you really are benevolent, it has a huge positive effect in life.
And Charlie, I wanted to expose something that we know, and actually all of us know this, which is there's a certain point where having more stuff doesn't really make you happy. Could you tell us why this is the case?
Well, what was the famous Gandhi saying? There's need and there's greed. And really, we only need a little. But I feel that acquisition and the culture of acquisition, which is such a big thing in our world, isn't it, Kim? Just accumulate. There's much deeper reasons for it. And we know that when people are depressed, they will go out and buy things. It gives you a temporary high. I really believe that it's a compensation for the true meaning of life. And really, the first need in life is love, belonging, good relationship. And if that desire is not fulfilled, then other desires emerge. We compensate that lack of by building the big house, and it gives me temporary happiness. So what we start to do is acquisition gives me temporary happiness, but actually I'm really looking for permanent happiness, but I never get it. So the acquisition addiction gets worse and worse and worse. And I just keep acquiring, getting the temporary highs, but coming back again. And so I once met a billionaire, and he told me himself, he said, the richer I got, the more unhappy I got. He said himself, I didn't say anything, it was his words.
Charlie, I'm not surprised at all to hear that. And like you, because we move in interesting circles, we both get to meet people who have a lot of physical wealth.
We do.
And I must say, whenever I meet them, I feel like the billionaire. You know, so it seems like a life of meditation and introspection, even half a life of meditation, or even 10% of a life, is to make you richer than just about everyone in the things that matter. This is sort of like a bit of a revolution, isn't it?
It is, Kim, and what you've said is quite beautiful, because there's physical wealth, there's emotional wealth, and there's spiritual wealth. And really, spiritual wealth is when you feel full, that incredible sense of contentment and attainment. Emotional wealth is when you have genuinely loving, fulfilling relationships. And physical wealth is when you have the latest car. What would you choose? What would you choose? You'd always choose to be, you know, and yet I think because of the lack of spiritual wealth and the lack of emotional wealth, the one wealth we can see is the physical wealth. Now, we all need things. I think it's fine. I'm not against possessions, but you only need one of something, or you need a few pairs of shoes, or, you know, that's all sufficient. But sometimes we waste money in the pursuit of happiness, basically.
Yes, and this law, it seems like there is one of these laws. It's the law of diminishing returns. The more we buy, the less happy we get at some point. But of course, when we fulfill our needs, it's important. And you're saying so clearly, there's nothing wrong with having a comfortable life. You're not saying that we have to become sannyasis or get rid of, you know, the basic things. We all deserve to live in a home, and if we get a good education, get a good job, there's nothing wrong with being successful. You know, you're not saying that we should be guilty at all, are you?
Not at all, Kim, because what I love, I think true spirituality is just moderation, you know. We don't have to be extreme, have nothing, live with a loincloth and a stick, and we don't have to go to the other side, which is absolutely too much. You know, we have this enough to eat well, to do what I need to do in my life. And I feel for many of us that if I have a little bit extra and I can contribute something that's going to make the basics of another person's life better, it's a lovely thing to do. I think that's a really beautiful thing to do. And, you know, when you were talking before, I know one woman who was telling me that she's from an extremely rich family. And she was so open. She said, I used to go and buy things and I'd never open the box. It was just the buzz of buying gave me a high. She was very open that, you know, that sort of addiction to that temporary high of acquisition, but it goes down so quickly. And she said it, you go back into that sad vacuum once again, which is I think why we go and acquire things, to get out of this sadness, this depression, that, you know, the empty feeling. And that's what spirituality feels, that empty feelings. So you just don't need it. You don't even suppress yourself. You just, whatever you need, you buy, but you don't buy extra.
Charlie, in the past you've talked about this funny thing inside all of us, and you've used the term the void, I think, which is a really interesting idea, that there is a little bit of well of suffering in most of us unless we do the long inner work. But what you're saying is we cover that up, don't we, through material things.
We do.
And by doing that, it seems like if we're accumulating, it's like we're losing our flexibility. So the other interesting thing is our ability to move fast when we really need it is lessened because we're like some turtle carrying around 20 extra turtle shells.
Yes. Yeah, we become in bondage to all these material things. And, I really think it's incredible, Kim, if you look at people who are really happy, they're quite satisfied with very little because they've tapped into a real happiness, which is from God, from truth, and from serving others with a true heart. And when you tap into that, you just don't need much. You're quite fulfilled with only a little. So that's really, I think, the recipe for a beautiful life.
So Carl, we've really agreed that it's worth being generous. So then I wanted to ask you, in a karmic sense, how can we be generous? Is it with our money or with our time or our actions? How does that work?
That's a beautiful question. I think on all levels, and I think a lot of generosity is of spirit. The generosity of spirit. You give love, you give respect, you give time, you give an ear, you listen. That's really the generosity that people really want. But all the layers of karma are good, but it's really, I think, that generosity, because I think there's a lot of material wealth in the world at the moment, but what people really want is that sense of spiritual fulfillment. And when I can offer that through my attitude or even offer that through my wisdom, that's a great gift. And your karma of offering that also increases your sense of well-being too.
So we've said to really agree on the fundamentals, that there's a world beyond the material. What do we do then when someone pushes our buttons? Like sometimes we think we're doing well and then we meet someone and maybe they're into a really conspicuous notion of showing themselves off.
Yeah.
And how come that sometimes pushes our buttons, even when we think we've done all the inner work already?
I suppose sometimes, Kim, when there's such overt ego, we want to, there's sometimes perhaps a little part of us that wants to push it down a bit. And someone seems so proud because they've got a new, Mercedes-Benz, or they've got some very superficial thing, and perhaps we there's a real little part of us that is reacting. And I think that, the more I have a real relationship with God, the natural result of that is the detached observer. So I developed this attitude where it's like we're in a play and there's all the different actors, and actually a play is enjoyable because everyone's playing a different part, and some are very naturally humble and sweet, and some are very showy characters, but it is what it is, Rather than taking sorrow from them, I just become a detached observer and even have goodwill, because the incredible thing is you change people when you actually give them respect. That's when you change. If you give them that or react to them, then we're not really helping them. We may even reaffirm that identity which they've bought into, even though we may see through that identity.
Charlie, this is very inspiring to me, because it says that, once again, and so many times you make me say this, that we can change our world immediately. That we only have to take this time to go within and start this practice of regular meditation, which will lead to inner forgiveness and then outer forgiveness.
Yeah.
Is it possibly one of the greatest miracles ever that we can transform ourselves like this?
It is, Kim, and it can be, sometimes how you have the idea that change is just such hard work, and even the thought of trying to change yourself, you feel a bit tired straight away. But actually it's just a little awareness. It's more awareness, isn't it? And I do think that when you attain in meditation, you naturally want to change and keep improving yourself. So, and I keep observing me, because the way you learn on the spiritual journey, you observe your own reactions. And I always see that if someone's behavior is a little bit as you were describing and I don't react, And I can even sort of have a good vision. I feel much better about who I am, you know. If I fall into any critical, negative, perhaps my own ego of looking down at somebody, even if it seems they're over showy, I don't feel so comfortable about who I am. And that, I think a lot of the spiritual journey is keeping yourself in the right space that you feel comfortable with who you are. And, you know, that's self-respect.
Charlie, I've really loved this discussion. I have one more question for you before we go into meditation. And it's, how do we be really discerning about how to give our money away? Because it seems like if we have a little bit, there's 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 people who are really happy to tell us what to do with it.
Yeah, that's a very deep question actually, Kim, because the law of karma says that if I give money to somewhere and it's misused, if it's used for something inappropriate, you know, drugs or whatever, that karmic burden comes on my head too. So I have to be a little bit discriminating as to, you know, how I use my money. And sometimes we can give in kind too, meaning rather than just money itself, we can give things that will help people, keep them warm or give them food or whatever it may be. But the beauty of life is to give. And I really, you know, my little learning for myself has been, the more you give, the less you take sorrow, take disrespect, and take hurt. Life is forgiving. Spirituality at the heart is to take from God and give through your thoughts, through your words, through your actions, through your wealth. That is, to me, the recipe for a beautiful, beautiful life.
Charlie, can we meditate, please?
Let me visualize the form of God. The radiant form of a sparkling star. A star that is ever full. An ocean of love. An ocean of peace. An ocean of purity. And when I turn myself towards the divine and feel the energy of love and peace and purity absorb into myself, I feel full. And the more I feel full inside, full of happiness and full of goodwill, I naturally give. And the beauty of life, and at the heart of the law of karma, is to give. Is to give goodwill and respect through my mind. Give encouragement and support through my words. To give cooperation through my actions. And if I have material resources, to use them to help others in their lives. The law of life says, the more I give, the more I will receive. If I want love, give it. If I want respect, give it. If I want cooperation, give it. As I give, the law of life will automatically fill my heart, and I will feel full inside. When I have a constant relationship with the divine, with God, the giving never makes me feel empty. In fact, the more I give, the more I feel full. The more I give, even the more energy I have. I am never drained, and I don't feel empty. The law of karma tells me the closer I feel to God, the more treasures I have in my life to give to others. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, we've had a beautiful meditation with Charlie where we've transcended this natural human desire to just have a lot of stuff and be wealthy into a deep, benevolent attitude where we're here to serve. And in meditation we've experienced these truths that as we give more, we will receive more. And surely this is like a cool bath for the mind. We can recover. We can heal ourselves with this thought that a good life is just a step away. All of us can become world benefactors. And I know, Charlie, you've used that term quite a lot. So before we go, I wanted to ask you to give everyone a small treat for 30 seconds. You give really beautiful drishti, which is this love of the eyes. Could we finish today's episode with a little bit of love of the eyes to the camera?
Mm-hmm.